Hello, this is an abbreviated presentation of the slides given at the KEG conference in Kamploops last week, entitled BC's Golden Triangle, It Goes to Kitsault. The concept of a golden triangle is hardly a geological concept, but it's one has to subscribe to these days in attempting to market any property in northwestern BC. There are various renditions of the Golden Triangle. On the left-hand side we see Skeena Resources and IDM Mining pretty much happy with the same triangle, which ends around about Stewart. Mining.com has the triangle extending down to close to Homestake Ridge, almost as far as Kitsault, but Colorado Resources, in my view, seems to get it right by extending it down to Antioch and including the Stewart to Kitsault range. I won't go into this slide. Most people who know northern British Columbia know the burgeoning gold and copper resources and sometimes reserves that are being pulled out of both the gold copper porphyries and from epithermal and VMS associated mineralization. Rather than talk about Kitsault, which is the name of the town associated with the Eocene molybdenum deposit just off Alice Arm, this arm of sea here, I will talk about this area mostly as the Kinskutch area, named by its lake, Kinskutch Lake, in the middle here. On this slide, the holdings of LCT Holdings, that's Rand Edgar Smyth and LCT, hold the 600 square kilometers in yellow. I purchased the brown title from Tech last year. Pink is Dolly Varden, silver, and red is Homestake Resources. We see on the left here the geology, and in the middle the magnetics flown by Homestake on 2/3 of the Kinskutch property in 2011. Added to that is the magnetics kindly provided by Dolly Varden for incorporation for interpretation purposes, and underlain by the digital elevation model. My first interest in the comparison, in the similarities between the Pretium's Brucejack Valley of the Kings deposit and the sulfurites KSM area was brought about by a report written by Dr. Andrei Panteleev on drilling that we carried out in the Big Bulk area in 2008, and we'll see that Dr. Panteleev said that the geological setting and style mineralization at Big Bulk, other than less deformation, similar to the Kerr porphyry copper gold deposits in the sulfurites district. So I have produced a slide that's available on the www.bigbulk.ca website that shows in broad strokes the similarities between the Brucejack KSM area up here and the Kitsault or Kinskutch Lake area down here, both characterized by a significant antiform, in fact two anticlinoriums in the Kinskutch area, one, the McTag, running very close to Brucejack and the KSM deposits, the Maguire anticlinorium being the name given to the one that runs through the Kinskutch area. Both areas also are characterized by proximity to the now famous Stuhini-Hazelton contact, the purple line here, or Jeff Khyber's red line. Here's the reference, Khyber 2014. The great majority of copper gold deposits in northern BC occur in close proximity to that contact, and that contact is just as present in the Kinskutch area as it is up around Brucejack. In the last few years, the BC Geological Survey has turned its attention first in 2013, written up in 2014, to the Brucejack area, beautifully written up, And then the next year, 2014, written up in 2015, they worked in the Bronson Corridor area, showing that many of the intrusions here are contemporaneous, Texas Creek time, with those giving us the Kerr, Sulphurets, Mitchell, and Brucejack deposits. In 2015, they moved south and worked in the Kinskutch area, and their results we'll talk about just now were released earlier this year. First, a quick look at their Brucejack area work. It's written up in this reference here. Beautiful analysis of the structures in the areas, type sections characterized in 2 or 3 areas proximal to the mineral deposits. Great photo documentation of the detailed lithologies, culminating in a very nice story of the development of the rocks hosting these deposits and what happened to them afterwards. They did effectively the same thing in the Bronson Corridor area, and nicely written up in this reference on the left. Again, world-class work, world-class research. Their conclusions were presented at this KEG conference a year ago in 2015, summarized by Joanne Nelson in the following words: in the KSM Brucejack camp and in the Bronson Corridor, early Jurassic extensional and wrench faults and related basin-controlled intrusion, alteration, and Porphyrian-related mineralization. Controlled those. Footwall zones of pervasive QSP alteration facilitated later reactivation of basin-binding faults as thrust faults. Northwest Tachynia porphyries, it's all their faults. I guess what's glossed over here is that these areas all seem to, after having rifting, have experienced inverse rifting and normal faults turning to thrust faults. Now, their work in the Kitsault to Red Mountain area, that's Red Mountain's just outside Stewart, so from Kitsault to Red Mountain, what this was presented in a actually a side session to Roundup, was not written up unfortunately in Fieldwork 2015, and these are their conclusions. Basically, there are Texas Creek intrusions exactly the same age as Brucejack and KSM are common in the Kitsault area. They are associated with proximal and distal mineralization, strong structural controls, and lots of evidence of tectonism and proximity to a rift in the sense of the presence of olistostromes. They also mentioned that they think that it's more likely to be a back arc environment. Interestingly, in a presentation last week at KEG, just a few presentations before mine, Warwick Board of Pretium Resources suggested that some of their exploration holes just a kilometre or 2 east of Valley of the Kings are highly suggestive of back arc rather than fore arc volcanism. So basically, BC Geological Survey concluding that the Kitsault Red Mountain area is very similar, or the same as KSM Brucejack. So I'll just add a little bit of our evidence for the same. Here's a map showing the porphyries that we know of and the dates that they were roughly first documented. There's one at Homestake, one at Copperbelt, on the Copperbelt next to Dolly Varden. Midnight Blue we drilled in 2008, porphyry there. Big Bulk we drilled in 2008 and 2009. St. David was discovered in 2007. It clearly a crowded porphyry with a fair bit of copper staining. No serious work done on that yet. North Ilians was mapped by Graham Evans during Tech's tenure of this area, just to the north of VMS, the VMS Ilians target here. Interestingly, there's an Eocene porphyry here with a significant molybdenum resource on it, and then the Kitsault molybdenum mine porphyry molybdenum mine is just down here, also Eocene. Evidence then that there must be some deep, very deep structures here that have been tapped through time from from around and before the 195 million year Texas Creek through to the Eocene, when we had molybdenum porphyries coming in, and indeed probably later. So Kinskutch area hosts many gold copper bearing porphyries, likely Texas Creek. In around 2006, Danny Aldrich, also of the BC Geological Survey, published an important paper expressing his opinion that, in fact, unlike earlier interpretations that showed one rift valley running from SK Creek all the way down to Antioch in the south, he postulated the presence of two rifts there. If that's the case, then one of them runs right through the eastern side of the Kinskutch property. So, Kinskutch has rifting. Kinskutch has inverse rifting and thrusting. This is a structural map of the area prepared by Dave Collar in 2007, published in an assessment report for the area, documenting exactly the same kind of thrusting that was identified by Joanne Nelson and Jeff Kaiber in the KSM area in their 2013-2014 work. Kinskutch area also has epithermal and VMS gold and silver deposits with resources, just like the KSM area. On the left, we have Homestake section through their Homestake deposit, thanks to Rob MacDonald, and on the right, Dollyvarden Silver's interpretation of their Dollyvarden, North Star, and Torbrit mines or deposits. Just a word on how one may explain the very close juxtaposition of both VMS and epithermal deposits. This is a slide brought to my attention by Danny Aldrich from his 2006 presentation. If one looks at the African Rift, where it goes into the sea in the Afar Triangle, in the Ethiopia area, here we see the ocean inundating the continent. If the volcanism shown in these cones here had come up under the water here and produced a deposit, it would be a VMS deposit a kilometer or two to the southwest, and it would have, the same mineralization would have resulted in something epithermal. So we're not surprised by maybe Dollyvarden being VMS and Homestake a few kilometers away being epithermal. Not only do we have known deposits with resources on them in the Kinskutch area, but on our Kinskutch property we have a new VMS drill target at Ilians, drilled in 2007 by Homestake with some very encouraging results. 3 or 4 meters at 6% zinc, 1% lead, and 250 grams a ton of silver. 3 meters at 300 grams a ton silver, 2% lead, and 6% zinc. And then another hole with 1.5 meters at 300 grams a ton silver, 17% zinc. So this is an immediate drill target right in the middle of the area we say is like the Golden Triangle. Looking at some of the deeper holes drilled in the Big Bulk Porphyry in 2009 by Anglo Gold, we see suggestions of a telescope porphyry with visible gold, a low sulfidation gold epithermal mineralization less than 600 meters away from gold copper porphyry intersections. These on the right hand side in 2009 by Anglo Gold, and on the left in 2003, where a borehole ran 21 meters at 0.86 copper and 0.64 gold near the top, and was stopped at 195 meters, still in mineralization, having gone through 50 meters at 0.3 copper and 0.2 gold. So this is the kind of porphyry mineralization one would expect with the Texas Creek intrusion. We have it in the Kinskutch area. Just a word on the modal mineralogy for those porphyry intrusions. Brock Riddell has kindly done some hand lens work for us on stained sections. What he does his best to do is eliminate late potassic alteration where he can, and in so doing, what he sees is evidence of at least 3 suites of intrusive rocks in the immediate big bulk area, these all within a kilometer of each other. The 2003 hole plotted in red, giving us mostly diorites to tonalites. The Anglo Gold borehole on the Dollyvarden and Silver's big bulk property, yielding both tonalites to quartz diorites as well as cyanitic intrusions. And then the host rocks to the visible gold that we saw in this visible gold that is just on the southern end of the lake here, coming up as a quartz monzite diorite. So on the structural side, in an effort last year to start bringing Dave Coller's broad-scale structural work to some meaning at a much higher resolution, we took a drone up to the southern shores of Kitsault Lake, flew it at about 90 meters, giving us a very high resolution digital elevation model. The purpose of this was to assist with mapping, and indeed with structural mapping. Individual veins on the glacial scoured surfaces of the rock can be seen for mapping surfaces, but from the DTM there is software available for extracting surfaces, the strikes and dips of those surfaces, so they could be joints or faults, and indeed plotting them up as Rose diagrams or as stereo nets. This work is being done by Patrick Portolano for me in France, and there's his website, www.eosys.fr, if you want to know more about this kind of work. The rationale here is to try and recognize what the age and orientation of veining is that's carrying that visible gold, and then try and find out where those veins become denser or where they horsetail, and use that as a vector into the gold mineralization that we think is later than the porphyry, the gold mineralization here and the main porphyry center sitting there. Just an aside on what happens if we find the porphyry under the lake. Well, mining this should not be too much of a problem because of the deeply incised Kitsault River Valley, just 8 or 9 kilometers to the west of the lake. The lake lies at about 1120 meters elevation. The bottom of the Kitsault River Valley is about 200 or 300 meters, so we've got about 800 meters where we could drop the porphyry and take it out in a tunnel at about 200 meters elevation, and then it's just a short 15-kilometer trip down to the sea and ship it to whoever wants to buy our concentrate. There's been considerable glacial retreat on the southern end of the Kitsault Valley, Kitsault Lake. Here we see a picture taken in the middle 60s, the glacier completely covering where the visible gold was found, and here's a picture taken last year in the bottom right hand corner, about half a kilometer to 700 meters of retreat of the glacier. All of this now needs to be prospected with high resolution mapping. As far as the geophysics of the area, the most interesting element at the moment, apart from the fact that on the entire Kitsault license very little follow-up work has been done on the high-resolution VTEM, MAG and spectrometer 100-meter flying program that was carried out in 2011. The fascinating thing is that if we look at the regional magnetics, there's a significant regional high over the central mountainous massif that runs down the middle of the area, not flown by Homestake in 2011. And if we cast our minds back to the map that showed the presence of porphyry intrusions all around the central massif, we think that this is a center of intrusions with generally more magnetic than the surrounding rocks, and that this whole area needs to be flown high resolution mag to pull out the the detailed structures that we're bound to find in here, both magnetized and demagnetized, to better allow us to explore all the porphyry mineralization in these mountains. Just before we close, 20 minutes was my allowance, and I'm on 20 minutes and 12 seconds. Another very relevant model, apart from the KSM Brucejack model for our area, is the kind of mineralization one finds in the Philippines. Baguio area I'm particularly familiar with, where we have a great model to pursue in the Kinskutch area, the model being the far southeast porphyry, which we see down here, and connected to it the wonderful Lepanto high sulfidation copper gold mineralization, and then discovered in around 1996, the time I was actually living down the road in Singapore, the Victoria low sulfidation veins, all giving us a lovely example of what we should be looking for around the intrusions at Kinskutch. So I highly recommend Economic Geology Volume 106, number 6, published in 2011, which gives a lot more details about porphyries and associated mineralization in the Philippines. So finally then I want to come back and ask the question, well, McTagg and the Maguire anticlinoriums, sorry, before we ask the question, we present a comparative stratigraphy and intrusive history on the left, one compiled just for the Maguire anticlinorium area by Rob MacDonald in 2014, where he puts together our stratigraphy with that of the KSM Pretium area, and then to the right of that the similar stratigraphic analysis published at Roundup this year by the BC Geological Survey. What we really need now is the fine minds, I guess, of the survey to integrate what they've done with what Rob has done and what we're trying to do there. So if we can convince them to produce another world-class report on their 2015 work, perhaps we'll find another world-class discovery in the Kinskutch area. But until they write it, we have to depend on what they say. So I'd like to close with the thought that BC's Golden Triangle, it goes to Kitsault because he says so. And there's a picture of the man himself, Bram van Straten, taking his notes on the shores of Kitsault Lake. Thank you.